Hello, hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Ray Bradbury. Here on Let's Talk Ray Bradbury, beginning way back in 2018, I began reviewing all the short fiction of Ray Bradbury. He wrote roughly 600 short stories in his lifetime. I'm not sure if anyone precisely knows how many, but we're going to review them all here one way or another, and so far we've reviewed over 230 of them, so I think we've got a pretty good lead on this project. Today's story is called I Get the Blues When It Rains, a Remembrance, written in 1980. It is part of the collection The Cat's Pajamas Stories from 2003, but the story itself was not written, or actually was not written in 2003, it was written in 1980, so it goes back a little bit, 2 years before my birth, actually. The way that these reviews work is I do a brief synopsis of what happens in the story, and then I wrap up with just a very brief analysis, some thoughts and feelings about what it all means. Is it a good story? What did I take away from it? I mainly do this for my own entertainment. All right, then. So a narrator starts by mentioning that anyone who is old enough will remember a certain kind of special night that happens once in a lifetime in their time on this earth. The type of night where there's spontaneous singing and drinking and dancing and just great memories, and the type of night that seems to last forever, but nobody wants it to end, and inevitably it does end, but it's very difficult to recreate. So he goes on to describe how he and his writer friends used to gather occasionally, perhaps once a month, to read some of their latest work, to workshop it, to first debut it to their friends and see what they think about it. On one such night, one of them happens to sit down at the piano and begins playing a song, I Get the Blues When It Rains. Shortly after, they start singing, everybody, and the wine is flowing, and they sort of go from song to song all night long, to the point where the neighbors ask them to be quiet, and basically every song they've ever known the words to, they manage to sing out, and nobody wants the night to end, but inevitably it does. And then, inevitably, a few months later, they get together again for one of these readings. Somebody sits down at the piano and begins to play, but it's just not the same, so somebody closes the lid on the piano and they go about reading instead, because that night was unrecreatable. Presumably, this is an autobiographical story. I think it'd be safe to say Bradbury did a lot of that. He injected himself to a lot of his stories. If anything, it's factually, if it's not factually correct, then it's certainly true philosophically. This is very much a type of night that I think a lot of people, or most people, will have a memory of in their life, especially if you're a sentimental type person like I am. So it's not so much a short story as it is a remembrance of a moment. You're not going to get a lot of character. You're not going to get a lot of plot, none of that. But it's really about feeling, and it oozes with feeling. You feel this night, a warm summer night, the wine's flowing, the windows are wide open all night. Perhaps you're outside on the patio or in the backyard under the stars. Everybody's singing, everybody's having a great time, and you just sort of never want it to end. And I think that Bradbury, in his attempt to sort of give life to this type of moment and put it down on page, does a reasonably good job at it. Obviously, it's such a sensational, feeling-based moment that how do you recreate that on a page, in just several pages, really. But I think, all things considered, he does a pretty good job of it. And it's sort of a shame that this 1980 story isn't better known, and it really isn't. So on a more personal note, I've had nights like this. Beginning in my teenage years, we used to, me and my buddies, we'd haul a bunch of wood up by our pond. We had a burning pit, and we'd sort of hang out under the stars all night, throw new logs on the fire, sit around telling jokes, just hanging out. Those were very special nights. And then as a young adult, I have great memories of manning aid stations at ultra marathons, to be down in the middle of the canyon, miles from anyone, just hanging out by the fire all night, waiting for racers to come in on their 100-mile journeys, talking to them, helping get them fed and get them out of the back on the trail. And also, there's one specific night where I was running a 100-kilometer up through this canyon, and got to the last 11 or 12 miles, and I picked up my pacer, and we sort of cruised through the dark this next section, and there was a moon. The moon was out and bathing the whole canyon in silver light, but you could see all the stars. And then if you look way back in the opposite direction, you could see just the faintest glow of heat lightning somewhere in the distance. And both of us sort of remembered it being a very, very magical moment. And it's sort of the type of thing that you sort of yearn to recreate. But since then, I've never been in that type of physical fitness again. It's unclear at this point whether I'll ever run another race. Maybe I will, but I could see myself sort of striving to recreate that moment and never sort of having it again. But even if I don't, I still have that memory to live in as long as I can keep it here in my mind. All right, then, that is I Get the Blues When It Rains, a Remembrance, which is quite appropriate, really, because it is pouring outside right now. I'm not sure if you can hear it. That story, again, was written in 1980, not published until 2004. And then, just to let you know what's coming up next, we down to 2 more stories to go in the Cat's Pajamas stories. The next story is All My Enemies Are Dead from 2003, which means it was a new story for this collection over 20 years ago now, which is hard to believe. But there you have it. Thank you for tuning in, and go out and make some great memories with your friends ASAP while you have the chance. See you later.